The new Assassin's Creed came out.
Unity.
This week.
Which we talked about before about the lack of the female
character
skins or whatever.
Yeah. Well, apparently maybe the team really wasn't up to the fucking task. Because
maybe they were telling the truth.
Maybe they didn't mean everyone has trouble animating female character models. Maybe they just meant, guys, we're in deep shit and we can't do it.
We really don't have the time to do this.
So Unity comes out and it's a bug-filled mess. People walk around like crabs. They have improper skeletons. They get stuck in fireplaces. Pieces of their face disappear mid-kiss. And, like, that's not part of the plot. It's not meant to scare you. It's just, this is what happens.
It's just bad. So it's basically incomplete.
And this is all funny, except for that Ubisoft put an embargo on the reviews until noon PST, the day of release.
Day of release?
Day of release. So that's 3 p.m. Eastern time.
After
I think that's right.
Tons of people have probably bought it.
Right, because it got a midnight release. And I am one... I've always said that if your review... If you put an embargo on your review past release day, anytime past midnight release day, you are broadcasting to the world that there is something wrong with your game. I mean, there's no way to read that any other way. Now, they insisted... So a review embargo, just to talk about quickly, is when they send out review copies of these games, you're not bound by law, but they suggest very sternly that you cannot publish your review of this game until this time on this day. And it's usually to keep in some cases it's used to keep any one site from getting a traffic bump by rushing through the game and getting the first review out. That's fair. But when it's done like this, which it was done with Destiny and I believe another game this year too, it usually sends up red flags that they want to sell as many launch day copies as they can before people read the reviews. Ubisoft swears that the reason for their embargo on this is that there's a heavy online component, and they wanted to make sure that reviewers could experience that online component before they publish the reviews. But the thing is, if you're only making the embargo for 17 hours after its release, they're not experiencing the full online component anyway. And a game like Assassin's Creed is still at its core a single-player game. So that's bullshit from Ubisoft. They knew they were shipping a product that was fucked and half-finished. I mean, your main character falls to the floor randomly. Well, they tried to say that it was the hardware's fault. It's like bullshit. The most buggy as in the PS4 and the Xbox One, the most buggy version of the game is the PC version.
Yeah.
I mean, so Kotaku went out there and said, and I do actually applaud them for this, that they're not going to abide by any of these embargoes anymore, even if it means that they don't get games for free or early, because they don't usually publish the reviews on the day of release anyway. They usually publish them a few days after so they can play through more of it. And I'm all for that. You know, screw the embargo. If you have early access to a copy and it's bad, tell people.
Well, here's the thing, though. How is Ubisoft going to suffer from this, if anything? I mean, tons of people bought this anyway. I'm looking right now. There's already a forum post where they have a list of some of the bugs and which ones they're working on, which ones they're already fixed on all of the platforms, PC, PS4, Xbox One. I don't know if this is all of them, but there's a bunch of red working on it. Workarounds are posted. In green, it's fixed. Arnold gets stuck in a hay cart next to Pantheon in the district. They fixed that. Arnold can fall through the ground when free running on various props and dropping. They fixed that in the PS4. Game crash when joining the co-op. They fixed that.
Well, I can tell you how that's going to change things. People aren't going to pre-order. And they rely on pre-orders to show investors that they're going to make money.
So, okay. From Ubisoft's standpoint, obviously you have a release date in mind. But even when you are, say, 3 months out and you're still playtesting, you're getting the bugs out, can't you at least make the call? What is the difference to them to wait a week or two to release it later? What would it hurt them for the goodwill of the fans to say, you know what? We need at least a week to fix this still. Because obviously they made these fixes in some of these fixes are already done in like a few days.
Right.
So if they took a week or two, you wouldn't have pissed off half these people. You would have gotten bad reviews. So what is Ubisoft thinking in not saying, hey, let's delay this? They delay movies all the time for reshoots because the effects aren't done. They push release dates back. It's very rare you see a big movie, and this is a huge AAA game. It's very rare you see a blockbuster movie get put on the screen and it's incomplete. Doesn't happen. So why don't they treat it the same way? Let's take the extra 2 weeks and work this out.
I think it's this. One, especially in specifically Ubisoft's case, they have been running behind on pretty much all their games. I mean, Watch Dogs came out a year after the projected release date. Two, it wouldn't be 2 weeks for Ubisoft because they have the entire world playtesting the game and yelling down their throats about bugs. That's way bigger than a typical QA team. So
you're saying the QA team, if they had 3 more weeks, they wouldn't have found these bugs?
No, they would have.
They didn't find these at all?
They would have found some of them, but I still think
some of these are basic.
Yeah, I know they are.
Just joining for co-op.
Well, that means their QA team sucks as well. But I'm just saying, in general, you have to understand 2 to 3 weeks of a QA team testing is different than 2 to 3 weeks of the entire world testing. Ubisoft, to do that right, would have probably had to put the game off another 3 months. Well, and they probably should have, because this is going to hurt them no matter what.
Their stock's been hurt.
Yep, their stock is hurt, and I mean, no one is pleased about this.
Their stock's dropped from the 11th. It was at almost $15. It's dropped down to $13.50.
I have people who have pre-ordered Far Cry 4 who are very concerned about whether or not Far Cry 4 is actually going to come out and be playable.
Jesus Christ. We didn't have to worry about this at least back in the day of cartridges and even PS1 discs, you know, like this is just horrific.
It's the whole release now, patch later mentality that they've allowed themselves to get into.
There's no accountability.
No. Back in the day when a cartridge was released, or even a game on the PlayStation 1 Dreamcast, or PS2, was released, even most of the games on the PS3 or Xbox 360, it wasn't until later when everyone had, it was assumed to have an internet connection. The games were tested way more rigorously for bugs, because if the game was released with bugs, you can't fix it.
It was very rare. It did happen. It was very rare, though, they came out with a disc game that was fucked. Wasn't one of the Tomb Raiders really buggy when it came out? I believe on PS2.
I think a couple of them were, but anyways.
But they had to basically, I think they had to do returns for some of them, and so that's a loss of a lot of money. But now they don't have to worry about that because they can just update it and patch it.
Yep, you can't return it as broken because it's functioning as everyone else's copy is, and you have to wait for the patch. But it is, like I said, no one's canceled their comes out next week. No one's canceled their Far Cry 4 order, but people are concerned about it. I mean, I've got customers talking to me. They're like, I don't know if I want to pre-order any games from Ubisoft anymore. And that doesn't really hurt a place like us, because we will always order in multiple copies of really big name games that we're going to sell.
But it'll hurt the company.
Yeah, and we don't. And if something like, say, Assassin's Creed, we didn't pre-order any copies because no one pre-ordered it. So we didn't get it. And no one's called asking for it. Wonder why. It's going to become less and less of a detriment to us to not pre-order a game, and it's going to become more and more of a detriment to the company.
Yeah, this is a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
This isn't, you know what I mean? Like I said, the stock's gone down.
I mean,
the stock's gone down about 10%. That's a big drop in a few days.
The BBC did an article on it. The BBC never talks about video games, and the BBC was talking about what a fucking train wreck this game was.
Yeah. It hurts your scores for your reviews, obviously, your Metacritic, if you follow that.
Well, that's the problem. When you look at the reviews, they're fine. Well, in spite of a few bugs, we would still play this game.
Really? They've been getting a pass by the major.
Well, they've been getting like 7 and 8s out of 10s, which is anywhere. I mean, converted over to normal people's scores, that's like a 1 to a 2. But still,
but it's all the sites where they're running probably the Assassin's Creed banner ads on the left and right.
They're patting Ubisoft on the ass.
That's good.
Try again, guys.
What great journalism! What great integrity! So yeah, I guess like I said before, they weren't lying about doing.
No, they obviously can't.
We talked about that like 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
I saw a picture of a woman, and she was like crab walking, but like her stomach was caved in, and it was just fucking ridiculous.
It's like the new Resident Evil game. This is fantastic. So basically, be on the lookout for, I guess, Ubisoft titles in the future. Obviously, tons of bad will they built up now. Hopefully, gamers don't forget it, and you vote with your wallet. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.